Hi guys, it's Rebecca. Thank you so much for joining me for today's video. Today's video is a non-makeup related video. These are the top 10 books that I read in 2018. As some of you guys know, I love to read. It's one of my biggest pastimes. That's how I like to relax. And so I just wanted to share with you guys my top 10 books that I read. I did do a Goodreads challenge this year of, originally I set it to 75, but I was doing really well. So I bumped it up like around August, September, I bumped it up to 90 and I was able to meet the goal. This year for 2019, I set my goal to read 100 books. So I don't know if I'm gonna be able to, but we'll see. So yeah, I just wanted to share with you guys my favorite books because I know some of you guys like to read and some of you guys have asked me to do a little bit more book related videos, but this is a makeup channel, so that's gonna be my priority in regards to content. But I do wanna share with you guys, for you guys that do read, my favorite book. So maybe you guys have read some of these books that I'm going to talk about. Maybe you're curious about. So let me know. My Goodreads is always linked in the description box if you guys want to add me so we can compare the kind of books that we read and we can talk about books. But anyway, let's just get started. At number 10, I have Cutting for Stone by Abraham Verghese. I read this book during the Booktubeathon back in, was it in August or July? I can't remember. But I read this book then. This book is about two twin boys that were born to a doctor and a nurse. The mom dies at childbirth and the father never knew that the lady was pregnant and he freaks out. He takes off and they end up being adopted by two missionary doctors in another missionary hospital. And this just follows their story from when they're little to all the way when they grow up and all the problems that they go through. This book is it can get very dark. It touches on a lot of dark subjects. Harshest one I think is female mutilation, which is something that happens a lot in Africa, unfortunately. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it still does happen. This book can put you in a depressive state if you let it. It's a wonderful story. It's a story of trying to better yourself. I had to check a couple of times when I was reading this to make sure that this wasn't a memoir because it felt like I was reading a memoir, and that's how real the things that this author writes. The next book is I Heart New York by Lindsay Kelk. This book is totally opposite of what I just mentioned right now. This I also read during the Booktubeathon, and this book is about a girl that is from England. She catches her boyfriend cheating on her, and in order to get over the relationship and start fresh, she just kind of like flies to New York on a whim. But then once she gets to New York, she finds a job, she makes new friends, and kind of moves on with her life, and that's what this book is about. This is total chick lit. It's super funny, super fast read. I believe this is a series. I think the next one is I Heart Paris. I would love to continue on reading from this author. Like I said, these books are really light and fluffy, and they're just cutesy books to read. The next book that I want to talk about is The Glass Castle by Jeanette Walls. This book is a memoir, and this is about the life of Jeanette and her family and her siblings as they grow up in a poor family, all the struggles that they went through. She goes through a lot of misfortunes growing up with her parents, her family, her siblings. Why do I like sad books? I thought this book was fiction because I had heard about the movie. The events in this book did happen. It's amazing what perseverance can do. People can get out of anywhere if they really want to, and I think she's a true testament of that. Really enjoyed it. If you guys like to read memoirs, this is a good one. The next book is Turtles All the Way Down by John Green. I know this book came out, I think it was 2 years ago, and this is Asa suffers from OCD. This book talks about how Asa overcomes it. It's young adult fiction, so she meets a boy, and the boy, not that the boy rescues her, but I guess developing the relationship with the boy helps her control her OCD tendencies. I think this is one of the best mental health books that I've seen that depicts mental health in a good way. Very easy to read, very engaging. Really enjoyed it. The next book is My Lady Jane by Cynthia Han, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. I absolutely loved this book. I've mentioned it before in my other book videos, if you guys have seen them or if you remember. I love anything that has to do with British royalty. I'm very fascinated by it. And this book follows Lady Jane Grey, who was Well, it's supposed to be like a retelling of Jane Grey's story. So I know the story fairly well. So reading the story, knowing what the authors changed about the story was really refreshing. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was super funny. I read it super fast. It's kind of a big book, but I read it super fast. And in the back of my hand was like, oh, this character is supposed to be this person and this character is supposed to be this person. So like I really enjoyed it because even though the details are changed, I really enjoyed it. There's another one called My Plain Jane. I haven't read it yet. I think that one's based on Jane Eyre. I have read Jane Eyre, so I can't wait to see how they changed some of the details, but this one is really good. If you haven't read it, you should read it. The next book is another non-fiction book, and this is When Breath Becomes Air by Paul Kalanithi. This is a book that was published after the author passed away. The author, he is a doctor, he was a doctor, and while he was finishing residency, he kind of started noticing his own symptoms, and he kind of knew what was wrong, but he was kind of like in denial. And it just follows his story about how he discovered his symptoms, and he was diagnosed with cancer, and all the things that he went through on his last days with his family, with his career, with the treatment, trying to beat the cancer. I read a lot of sad books. It's a very sad book. The epilogue is written by his wife. So that was really, really heart-wrenching. It's a tiny little book. It won't take you long to read. The next book that I want to talk about is Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. In this book, I honestly had no desire to read it, but the only reason why I picked it up is because Heather from Bookables, she raves and raves about this book, and I'm so glad that I did. This is another book that depicts mental health. This is one of those books that a lot of people said that Eleanor was very unlikable, but I actually liked her. I didn't have any trouble caring for Eleanor. This is, like I said, another book that deals with mental health. There's kind of a twist at the end that I did not see coming. I'm really bad at seeing twists when it comes to books. I guess I don't pay a lot of attention to little details, but yes, I really, really enjoyed it. This was kind of funny, not very funny, but it was very intriguing, and I really, really liked it. The next book that I'm going to talk about is a book that I am super, 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 super late to the party, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, and that is The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini. I have read all of his books, and this is his first book, and I hadn't read it until last year. This is worth all the hype that it gets. If you haven't read it, you should. I don't want to talk about too much because I went into this book not knowing a lot of what it was. I was expecting it to be about a story about a boy living in poverty and suffering in the turmoil that is the Middle East, but it's not about that. So I feel like if you don't know a lot about this, you'll enjoy it more. So that's all I'm gonna leave it at. The next book that I'm gonna talk about is Hyperbole and a Half by Ali Brosh. This book is hilarious. This is literally laugh out loud funny. This is kind of like a picture book, but then you do get like a little bit of a story. I think because of the pictures, I think that's why it's so funny. There's a chapter here where she's talking about she adopts a dog, and she's trying to train her dog. She's getting frustrated because the dog just won't get it. And like the little pictures here makes it just look, I could relate a lot to that chapter. But anyway, this whole book is super, super funny. If you guys haven't read it, you guys should. This book doesn't really have like a plot or a story. It's just a bunch of like little stories that talk about her life. Like the one with the dog, when she adopts the dog, when she moves, when her and her husband move. Another story about something that happened at their house. Another story is about when they were chased by wild geese. And it was just a bunch of like little funny things that have happened to her in her life. It's really, really funny, guys. You should read it. The next book is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I absolutely love this book. I am a big fan of historical fiction novels, and this book is set around the World War II era. This is about two sisters that are kind of like, not that they go separate ways, but this is during the World War II era. One sister is kind of like really follows the rules, does what she's told, where the other one is a little bit more of a rebel, more free-spirited, and not conforming to the ways of what the Nazis want them to do. and the story of love between both of the sisters. This has a twist towards the end that made me literally gasp out loud. I was reading this at the hospital. I was getting some blood work done, and I was reading this in the waiting room area for the lab, and I was like, oh, and people just kind of like look at me like, what's going on with this lady? But anyway, I really enjoyed this book. Made me cry. Again, one of those things that I did not see the twist that happens until it happened. And I like that because it didn't ruin the story for me. I was able to enjoy it. It's kind of a big book, but I read it super fast. This is one of the books that I'm going to keep forever. One of the books that are never gonna get decluttered from my collection. I loved it. And that's it, guys. Those are the books that my favorite books of 2018. I am gonna be doing a reading A to Z with some of the girls. Amanda D, she invited me to a group chat. I think there's like 5 girls. Brandy is in it, and I think Jessica's in it too. And the other 2 girls, I don't know. But we're gonna try to do instead of like a makeup A to Z, a reading A to Z, where we're gonna try to read books. I'm guessing books with titles that we can fit into the A to Z. I just said sign me up. I haven't really read like the instructions, but you should see that video towards the end of the month. Don't worry, this will not take away from the makeup that is my channel. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on my next video. Bye.